It was the quiet kind of morning, the one where the coffee turns cold before you touch it and your thoughts start running before your feet do. I was sitting at the back of the courtroom. My hands were steady, but my chest felt like it was about to burst. In the front row, a young girl no older than 12 clung to her foster mother's sleeve. She was too small for her oversized hoodie, too old for that haunted look in her eyes. And then she turned. She saw me. And with all the softness in the world, she whispered, "Dad." I didn't even know her name until that morning. "My name's Lucas. I'm 42. Single. No kids, or at least that's what I thought until 3 weeks ago when a letter from the Department of Child Services showed up in my mailbox. It said I was listed on the birth certificate of a child named Emily Dawson. Her mother, Dana, someone I hadn't seen in over a decade, had passed away recently. No living relatives. No will. And suddenly, I was a potential biological guardian. I thought it was a mistake. Dana and I had something once, brief, reckless, and buried in the past. I didn't even know she'd had a child. We hadn't spoken in years. But when I saw that child in court, those eyes too familiar, her face like a ghost from my past, I knew. Somewhere in the silence between us, something shifted. She thought I was her father. And somehow, I was. The judge hadn't made a decision that day. "We need to establish intent, willingness, and biological verification," she said, scanning my expression like I was some unpredictable variable. But Emily didn't care about the paperwork. She stared at me with a kind of longing that broke something open in me. Like she'd waited her entire life for someone to come back for her, and maybe I was the closest thing she ever got. I couldn't explain the guilt that washed over me. I hadn't even known she existed. But she'd spent years, birthdays, milestones, first heartbreaks, all without me. And yet, she called me Dad. Like it wasn't a question. Like it was a fact. The social worker, Melinda, pulled me aside after the hearing. "She doesn't talk to many people," she told me gently. "But she asked to sit in the courtroom today. She wanted to see if you'd show." I hadn't planned on staying long. I figured I'd clear things up and move on with my life. But when I turned to leave, Emily rushed after me. She didn't say anything. Just handed me a folded paper, a drawing, crumpled and torn at the edge. It was a stick figure of a man with a big smile, holding hands with a girl in pigtails. "Me and Dad," it said in blue marker. I'd never drawn her bath water, packed her school lunch, or kissed a scraped knee. But she believed I was hers. Back in my apartment that night, I sat in silence staring at that drawing. I didn't know what scared me more, the thought of walking away, or the weight of trying to become someone I should have been from the start. Because sometimes life hands you a second chance. But only if you're brave enough to take it. And just when I started to believe maybe I could step up, I got a call that changed everything. Melinda's voice was shaking. "There's something you need to know about Emily's past. Something Dana never told anyone." I couldn't sleep the night after the hearing. Emily's voice, soft and trembling, kept echoing in my mind. "Dad," that one word hit harder than anything I'd ever heard in my life. I didn't earn it. I hadn't even tried. But she said it like she meant it. The next morning, I sat across from Melinda, the social worker, in her cramped little office that smelled faintly of cinnamon and old paperwork. She had that look on her face, part compassion, part warning. "She's been in and out of 3 homes," she said, tapping Emily's file. "This idea of you, it's what's keeping her going. But Lucas, if you can't commit to this, it's better to step away now." I didn't know what to say. Because I didn't know what I was supposed to feel. I hadn't asked for any of this. Dana and I were a mistake. A brief, alcohol-fueled, messy relationship that ended before either of us even knew what we wanted from it. She moved away. We never stayed in touch. And now, somehow, I was the last thread in a little girl's life. I asked Melinda if I could see her again. Not officially. Just, something small. A visit. She nodded, cautiously. 2 days later, I found myself sitting in the back room of a group home, nervously tapping my fingers on my jeans. Emily walked in slowly, holding a stuffed rabbit by the ears. She didn't speak right away. Just looked at me like she was trying to memorize my face. "You didn't run away," she said softly. "No," I replied, forcing a smile. "I didn't." She nodded, as if that meant something far bigger than it sounded. "We played board games. She beat me twice at Connect 4. I told her I used to be a terrible student and hated math. She giggled when I got the rules wrong. She wasn't bubbly or overly talkative. But she watched me, carefully, like she'd been watching the world long enough to know not to trust it easily. "I used to draw pictures of you," she said after a long pause. "Before I even saw you." I froze. "What did you think I looked like?" She shrugged. "Tall. Sad. But kind." My throat tightened. Later that night, I sat in my car with the heater blasting and that stuffed rabbit on the seat beside me. She'd left it behind, just in case I forgot her. That's when it hit me. She didn't just want a dad. She wanted someone who wouldn't disappear. Over the next week, I visited twice more. We had lunch at the park. I brought her sketchbooks. She drew things that made no sense and then explained them with stories that somehow made perfect sense to her. I listened. I laughed. And slowly, I felt it, guilt turning into something else. Something heavier. Responsibility. Maybe even, connection. But then Melinda called again. "There's something in Dana's medical records you need to see," she said. She wouldn't say more on the phone, but her tone had changed. That careful, professional warmth had dropped into something colder. That night, I stared at Emily's drawing pinned to my fridge. Me and Dad at the beach. The stick figures were holding hands. Above them, a heart-shaped sun. And for the first time in years, I wasn't scared of being alone. I was scared of losing someone I never knew I had. Emily was starting to open up. She laughed more during our visits. She asked questions. She called me Dad with less hesitation, as if it finally belonged to me. And even though I was still unsure what I was supposed to be, I found myself wanting to earn it. But something changed after our fourth visit. She was quieter. Distracted. She clutched her stuffed rabbit tighter than usual and didn't meet my eyes when I asked about school. She brushed it off with a shrug. "She's been withdrawing again," Melinda told me later in a hushed voice. "It happens when she feels like something's about to go wrong." "What would make her feel that way?" I asked, my stomach sinking. Melinda hesitated. "She's been through enough men who promised to stay and didn't." I didn't have an answer for that. Later that week, I got the call I'd been dreading. The paternity test results had come in. I wasn't Emily's biological father. I stared at the email for almost 10 minutes, rereading it like it might magically change. But the numbers were clear. No chance. No connection. Not even close. Legally, I could walk away now. And maybe I should have. Maybe it would have been easier. But when I remembered her calling me Dad, showing me that drawing, leaving her rabbit on my car seat, something inside me cracked wide open. I wasn't her father by blood. But maybe I could still be her father by choice. I met with Melinda in person, the results printed and folded in my coat pocket. I still want to apply for guardianship, I said. She blinked. Even after this? She doesn't know, I said softly. And maybe she doesn't need to. Melinda sighed, tapping her pen on the desk. Lucas, if you want to pursue this, you're going to need to commit. Home visits. Psychological evaluations. Stability checks. Are you ready for that? I wasn't sure. But I nodded anyway. Then came the visit that changed everything. Emily was waiting in the center of the garden at her foster home, drawing quietly in the dirt with a stick. When she saw me, her face lit up, just for a second. But then it faded. She walked up slowly and handed me a folded note. It read, "They told me you're not my real dad. I already knew. But I still want you to be." I felt the air rush out of my lungs. Before I could speak, she looked up with eyes that carried the weight of someone far older. "People leave," she said quietly. "It's okay if you do too." I just needed to know what it felt like, even for a little while. I knelt down and held her hand. "I'm not going anywhere," I whispered. But the universe wasn't done testing us. That night, I got a call from someone I didn't expect, Dana's sister, Rebecca. "I heard you're trying to take Emily in," she said, voice sharp with suspicion. "I am," I replied carefully. "She's not your child," she snapped. "And you're not the only one who can file for custody." I gripped the phone tighter. "Where were you when Dana died?" There was silence. Then she said something I didn't expect. "There are things about Dana, about what she was hiding. You don't know the whole story." Rebecca's voice echoed in my mind long after the call ended. "You don't know the whole story." It haunted me. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed, holding Emily's latest drawing in my lap. A new one. She'd given it to me without saying a word. It was simple, the two of us sitting on a park bench, the rabbit between us. Above, she'd written in childlike scrawl, "Real isn't blood. Real is who stays." I couldn't sleep. The next morning, I asked Melinda if I could speak with Rebecca in person. I needed answers, anything Dana hadn't told me. Anything that could help me understand what kind of world Emily came from. Rebecca agreed, reluctantly. We met at a small cafe on the edge of town. She looked nothing like Dana, sharper features, colder eyes. But there was something guarded in her body language too, like she wasn't there to fight, just to make peace with something she didn't understand. "I'm not here to challenge custody," she said right away. "But you deserve to know what you're stepping into." I didn't interrupt. I let her talk. And what she told me shattered everything I thought I knew. Dana had struggled with addiction for years. Not just alcohol, prescription meds too. The last year of her life was a blur of broken jobs, lost apartments, and one bad relationship after another. Emily had witnessed things no child ever should: violence, fear, abandonment. Sometimes, Rebecca said, Dana would disappear for days. Emily would sit by the window and wait. I felt sick. "She'd draw pictures of you, even back then," she added softly. "Dana told her stories, how you were busy working, how you'd come back one day." It wasn't true. But Emily believed it because she needed something to hold on to. Tears burned my eyes. "She created you long before she met you. Don't break that now." I drove straight to the group home that afternoon. I asked to see Emily privately. When she walked in, her face was puffy. She'd been crying. I knelt in front of her, unsure of how much she'd heard, or guessed. I talked to your aunt, I began carefully. She told me about your mom, and the things you went through. Emily sat on the edge of the chair, hands clenched in her lap. I know I wasn't there. And I didn't even know you existed until a few weeks ago. But I need you to know something. She looked up. Her eyes were wide, wet. I'm not going anywhere. Her lips trembled. Even if I'm not yours. You are mine, I said gently. Not because of a test. Because I choose you. And I'll keep choosing you. Every single day. Emily didn't speak. She just reached forward and hugged me like she was afraid I'd vanish if she let go. But just as I felt the weight of her trust settle on my shoulders, Melinda pulled me aside. There's a problem, she whispered. A serious one. What now? I asked, drained. There's a former foster parent claiming they have a valid petition to adopt her. They're from another state. And their case is strong. Emily was placed with them for 5 months 2 years ago. My head spun. They never visited. Never wrote, I protested. They claimed they tried and were denied access due to the system's failure, Melinda explained. They have a lawyer. This could go to court. The ground beneath me shifted. Everything I'd fought for, everything Emily and I had built, was suddenly at risk. They could take her. I asked, voice cracking. If the court sees them as the more stable option, yes. Emily stood behind me, still clutching her drawing. I turned, heart pounding. I didn't know how to tell her. But she already knew. She looked up, voice small but steady. Are you still going to fight for me? I knelt and cupped her face. Always. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Emily's face. The way she looked at me after asking if I would still fight for her, it broke something inside me and rebuilt it in the same breath. The threat of losing her to the out-of-state couple wasn't just legal anymore, it was deeply personal. I called my attorney the next morning. We need to fight this, I said, voice firm. He sounded calm, but cautious. We'll do everything we can. But family court has its own mind. If they prove pre-existing emotional attachment, they don't, I cut in. They left her. I didn't. But logic and love don't always weigh equally in court. 3 days before the hearing, I got a letter. No return address. Just my name written in tight cursive. The handwriting looked familiar, but I couldn't place it. Inside was a short note. You need to know the truth before you get too far. Dana lied to you. She lied to all of us. Emily might not even be her daughter. What? My chest tightened as I stared at the words. I flipped the page over, there was a photo attached. Dana, looking frail, holding a baby. But the baby's face was scribbled out in ink. I turned the paper again. Scribbled on the back in the same handwriting, ask Melinda what happened the night Dana died. A chill ran through me. I showed Melinda the letter. Her face drained of color. You weren't supposed to see this, she said quietly. Is it true? I demanded. Is Emily not even Dana's biological child? Melinda hesitated. There was a complication in the paperwork. Dana had no hospital record of giving birth. She told social services she had her at home, alone. And no one questioned that. We were under pressure. She had custody for years. And Emily, she was so clearly bonded to her. We didn't want to risk uprooting her life. I leaned against the wall, trying to breathe. So where did Emily come from? Melinda closed her eyes. There's a missing persons report filed in another state. Baby girl, 3 months old, never found. The dates line up. But nothing was ever proven. I felt like the floor dropped from under me. I've been fighting for a child whose real past no one knows. Melinda looked up. But what we do know is that Emily loves you. She trusts you. She's chosen you. Whatever her past is, you're her future. If you still want to be. That night, I sat with Emily in the garden outside the group home. She was humming something under her breath, legs swinging over the bench. I sat beside her, silently, unsure how to begin. Did I do something wrong? She asked suddenly. Her voice was small. No, sweetheart, I whispered. You didn't do anything wrong. She nodded slowly. I heard them talking, she said. About other people coming to take me. I closed my eyes. They might try. Will you let them? She asked. I didn't answer right away. I don't care who I used to belong to, she said quietly. I just want to stay with you. I pulled her close. Then that's what we'll fight for. The court date was 2 days away. And everything I thought I knew about Emily had unraveled. But something had become painfully clear: biology didn't make someone a parent. Love did. Choice did. Sacrifice did. And I was ready to sacrifice everything to keep her safe. Even if it meant facing a courtroom full of people who'd say I didn't have the right. Because Emily was mine. Whether or not she ever truly belonged to Dana. Whether or not the courts saw it. Whether or not the past was clean. She was mine because I showed up. Because I stayed. And no one, not the foster system, not a judge, not some anonymous couple from across the country, was going to take that from us. The courtroom felt colder than I expected. Rows of chairs, all half filled with faces I didn't know. I sat beside my attorney, my hands gripping the worn edges of Emily's drawing tucked inside my coat pocket. Across from me sat the couple, the people who were fighting to take her. They looked polished, put together. A husband and wife in their 30s, both with subtle smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. Melinda was called first. She spoke carefully, laying out the facts: Emily's history, Dana's unstable lifestyle, the gaps in documentation, especially about Emily's birth. She has no official birth certificate, the opposing lawyer snapped. No medical record. No biological connection to Mr. Porter. All we have is hearsay and assumption. Emily was raised by Dana, Melinda replied, voice firm. And since Dana's death, she has developed a strong emotional bond with Mr. Porter. That relationship is real. And it matters. The judge, an older woman with kind but unreadable eyes, listened in silence. Then it was my turn. I stood, cleared my throat, and looked directly at her. I didn't know about Emily until a month ago, I began. And when I found out, I questioned everything: why Dana never told me, what kind of man I was that I could have missed something so huge. I paused. The courtroom was completely still. But then I met her. And something changed. Not because of DNA. Not because someone told me to care. Because I saw a little girl who was desperate for someone to stay. I took a breath. She calls me Dad. Not because she was told to. Because I showed up. And I've stayed. The other lawyer stood. You admit she may not be your daughter. I admit she might not be Dana's either. But what does that change? Emily is a child. She needs love, stability, and safety. I'm not perfect, but I'm willing to give her everything I've got. And I think that counts for more than paperwork. Then the couple spoke. She was ours, the woman said. For 5 months, she was ours. We wanted to adopt her then, but the agency retracted our file. We didn't know why. We fought it, but we had no legal rights. Now we do. Their words were calm, but rehearsed. Safe. But they never once mentioned Emily's feelings. Her fears. Her rabbit. Her drawings. Her music. Her voice. Just their rights. Emily was brought in next. A social worker guided her gently to the front. She wore a yellow cardigan and carried her rabbit. "Do you know why you're here?" the judge asked. Emily nodded slowly. "Because they want to know who I should live with." "And do you have an answer?" She looked around. Her eyes scanned the room, then locked on mine. "I want to stay with Lucas." "Why?" Her voice cracked. "Because he doesn't leave." The courtroom fell silent again. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded paper. The judge took it and opened it. It was a drawing. Of the two of us. Again. Above it, the same words from before: "Real isn't blood. Real is who stays." I couldn't breathe. The judge wiped a tear from the corner of her eye, then nodded to the bailiff. "We will recess. I'll return with my decision shortly." It felt like forever. When she returned, the room tensed. "I've reviewed all evidence, and while the legal standing of both parties is complicated, I cannot overlook the emotional well-being of the child. Emily has expressed a clear, consistent desire to remain with Mr. Porter. Her stability and healing are directly tied to that bond." She paused. "Custody will be awarded to Lucas Porter." The room spun. I looked over at Emily, who burst into tears and ran into my arms. We held each other, shaking. The other couple quietly stood and left without a word. Melinda placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "You did it." I looked at her, blinking through tears. "No. We did." But just as we walked outside, hand in hand, into the daylight, Melinda's phone buzzed. She read it. Froze. "What is it?" I asked. She turned the screen toward me. New lead. A woman just came forward. Claims she may be Emily's birth mother. The drive home from the courthouse was quiet. Emily sat in the back seat, her rabbit tucked under one arm, staring out the window. I glanced at her in the mirror every few seconds, like I was making sure she was still real. That this wasn't a dream that would disappear the moment I blinked. But the real moment came when we pulled into the driveway, and she looked up at the porch of my house, our house now. "Can we hang the drawing on the fridge?" she asked. I smiled. "We'll frame it. Front and center." The days that followed weren't a perfect fairy tale. There were paperwork trails, trauma therapy appointments, and night terrors that left her screaming my name at 2 a.m. But every time she reached for me in fear, I was there. Every time she looked unsure, I was steady. Every time she started to call me Lucas and caught herself, I just smiled and said, "It's okay. I know who I am to you." She kept calling me Dad anyway. 2 weeks later, Melinda came by with the results. The woman who claimed to be Emily's birth mother had undergone DNA testing. "She's not a match," Melinda said softly. False claim. I should have felt relief. But instead, I felt sadness. A little girl's entire history still sat in shadows, and we had no key to unlock it. She may never know where she really came from, I whispered. Melinda nodded. But she knows where she's going now. That night, Emily stood at the kitchen table, carefully signing her new name on a drawing. Emily Porter. She looked up at me with those same, brave eyes. Can we make a song together? She asked. Like a real one. I laughed. You sing. I'll try not to ruin it. Months passed. She started a new school. I enrolled her in music therapy. She sang her heart out to songs about home, about being lost, about being found. She made friends. She started painting. She stopped flinching at thunder. And one day, out of nowhere, she turned to me in the middle of brushing her teeth and said, "Did you ever feel scared that I'd forget you too?" I froze. Yeah, I admitted. I did. But I won't, she said. Not ever. Because being a parent isn't about biology or time served. It's about choice. It's about who stays. And even though I wasn't there when she was born, even though I didn't know she existed until just months ago, she is mine. Not because the court said so. Because she made space in her heart for me. And I built a life around that space. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, we read every one.